my partner on this discussion and hopefully some screenings of the film Women in Dementia, and that's Hannah Philpott with ProMedica, who has Arden Courts. Hannah, for folks that may have not met you before and not be familiar with ProMedica and Arden Courts, give us tell us a little bit about it.
Yep. Hey, Steve, and hey, everybody. So Arden Courts partnered with Hopkins back in the 1990s to do a very purposefully built memory care community. Memory care is all we do, where your loved ones are able to have freedom of movement while they're learning and at the best quality of life. While dealing with the dementia, specifically for Alzheimer's and different other types of dementia. So we really set out to accommodate everybody's own individual needs and come up with a specialized service plan. And that might be through programming, through music therapy, through art therapy, whatever it needs to help you as, the caregiver really become that family member again and take those responsibilities off you and have you be the daughter or the son or the husband or the wife, whatever it is again, and to give your loved one that quality of life as they progress through their dementia diagnosis. So I appreciate this, and I'm really excited to hear and hear from Kitty.
This is great. And folks, Hannah and we're working behind the scenes to try to do a live screening of the film in the Washington, D.C., Baltimore area. And then and then once we get that date set, because I don't want I don't want an online screening to cannibalize people coming to the live screening, then I'll coordinate an online screening so that we can, if you can't make it to the date that we have for live screening, you could make it to that. So thanks for your support, Hannah. Really charged up about working with you on this film. So so now we're going to get to know Kitty. We're going to talk about the film. She's got some clips from the film, and I was psyched when she showed me the first clip because it was my favorite scene in the film. I have some comments on that. But before we dive in, I realized, Kitty, that I think I was introduced to you by Nicole Smith, who is on this call. And I can see by the comments that you've got a few folks in your fan club that are on this call, which is wonderful. But this is a great film. But before we dive into it, tell us a little bit about your background and what led to you creating such an innovative film.
Well, first of all, after the introduction, I just want to say I feel like a Gen X slacker. You guys have so many things that you're doing and putting together, and all I did was make a little documentary. So I'm very impressed, very happy to be here. My background was always in storytelling. I worked in nonprofit theaters for the first part of my career. Working more on the development side, working with the donors, but I was always around, the best Shakespeare, the best playwrights, the best American theater. So I knew a lot about storytelling. And then I decided to go into editing. And I wanted to help support the people telling those stories. So I was working in post-production. I had moved from my town, Portland, Oregon, a couple of years after Mom had been diagnosed, actually, and went down to LA and decided I'd try and get to an editor's chair, and learned a lot about post-production, understood a lot about what it took to put a show together. I worked on some documentaries, but I mostly worked on NBC narrative series. So I didn't have that much experience in documentaries, but I knew enough to think I could do it, and I was too dumb to know I shouldn't. So that's how I ended up making a documentary.
I love it. I love it. Okay. Now, folks, like you said, I can see there's a few people on the call that have seen the film. And so as you can see, using chat or raising your hands or using Q&A, this can be very interactive. Okay. So we want to ask questions. And most importantly, one of the main reasons I wanted to have Kitty on here, just talking about the film, is that some of the scenes she's going to share, we can have some conversations about the challenges that we all face in caring for our loved ones without seeing the complete film. Okay. And that gets me kind of charged up for us too. So you put together this film, and but tell us the journey there, because you actually document it in the film, and we aren't stealing any punchlines here. I think is that you are in the film industry, and then your mom gets dementia.
Yeah. Yeah. We got the diagnosis in 2010. So, and I went with my mom to the doctor. She didn't want anyone to know. She especially didn't want my father to know. I think she was terrified of the outcome. And our first diagnosis was MCI, which is so common, mild cognitive impairment. My dad decided that he was going to take care of her for the rest of her life. And then in 2016, he died rather suddenly of pancreatic cancer. And it was 3 weeks from diagnosis to death. By that point in time, mom couldn't live on her own, and my sister and I knew we were up. We were on deck. We had relatives who were like, they're just gonna throw her in a old folks home and walk away. And my sister and I, as frustrated as we can be with each other, knew that that was not going to be this journey. We were gonna keep mom in the house for as long as we could, and if we couldn't do it that way, then we would find the best alternatives and still remain her caregivers, even if it was just in an advocacy level. So
Yeah,
huh.
This is such a common story of like, and I think you're going to share some clips with us where you can see how your dad was healthy and cognitively aware and was doing a great job of being your mom's caregiver, and nobody would ever imagine your dad, you guys, is that, oh, he's definitely going to outlive her. Look at how healthy and active and with it he is. And then something happens, and now all of a sudden that primary caregiver is gone. It's
Yeah.
super challenging. This is dementia, but where another area where we see it is when somebody has mobility problems, and they get injured, because they're lifting their spouse or what have you. But anyways, so you and your sister came in and became caregivers. Did you were living in LA? Where was mom and dad living
In Oregon City. So
so
back in Portland. It's about 11 miles south of Portland, where I grew up, Portland, Oregon. Yeah, mom and dad have a split level, and it was very easy for us, my boyfriend and I, just to come back here and move right into the bottom of the house, the bottom part of the split level. And logistically, it turned out great because, on my days as the full-time caregiver, I would just be upstairs. The caregiver would sleep upstairs across from mom's room. The kitchen's up there. Mom spent most of her time up there. And then on my days off, my sister would come in and she'd do all of that upstairs and, spend 24/7 here for 2 or 3 days. And I could come downstairs and kind of have a life.
so
But that's when I also, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I'm glad that you brought this up, because this is something that's not detailed in the film, but it's something that we oftentimes talk about, and that is coordinating care between our village, our personal community, you and your sister, and then paid caregivers. And it sounds like, and I think I remember in the film seeing a paid caregiver. I know this was something that you didn't highlight in the film, because there was a different narrative, but any insights on having a paid caregiver? Were there any challenges or things that went well or didn't go well in that process?
Right. We accessed paid care a few times, and the first couple of times it was through an agency. Um, it was pretty early on in us taking over for mom, and I think she was just not ready for it. I think she felt babysat. So it worked out for about 4 months, and then at some point mom just got really pissed off at the lady, and that was the end of that. About 3 years into our caregiving, my sister and I were just exhausted, had just had it, didn't, especially me. And I didn't think I could do it anymore. So we went the memory care route, and memory care is such a great option for so many families. It works out great. We thought we had picked a great one. They had a ton of really strange things come up, like the activities director died of a heart attack the week before mom moved in. Their head nurse was already transitioning out, so they were in, that's kind of an interim process for a memory care. And then the director of the memory care discovered that she had a brain tumor, and she was going to go in for surgery in 3 months, and she was very distracted. It just didn't work out for our family. It turned out to be more stressful to have mom there than to have her at home.
So mom actually moved and lived there for a temporary period of time.
Yeah, we call it the most expensive 5-week vacation we've ever had.
Now, there's
And
something.
after that, just to wrap it back to the caregiver, after that, my sister and I brought mom home, but we were still struggling. So the route that worked best for our family was to private hire a third caregiver, and she came and lived with us for 3 days a week. So we just kept splitting up. I was always here. I was always on deck, but there was, for part of my week, there was somebody upstairs who was the main person, and I only went up when I heard, dishes breaking or mom yelling or.
So there's a couple of things that I didn't pick up on the film is number one, that your caregiving journey with your mom went on for so long. I had no idea that that was 3 years. I mean, it
It was
probably said
fine.
it in a caption or something, but that's a long time. And it's one of the challenges of this disease. Number two, the other thing that I want to highlight, which is one of my favorite parts of the film, is your laugh and your smile and your sense of humor throughout the film. And folks, like, as Kitty was talking about this catastrophic, journey into a memory care community, and all of these leaders are just like dropping like flies. I mean, you notice that she was kind of laughing and smiling about it. Is that that's one of the coolest things about this film is that there you honored the insane nature of this disease and how devastating it is to families and everything. But the thing that I liked was sort of, hey, we're in this, let's join with a community, raise a glass of wine, we're going to do this hard work and care and love for our loved ones, but let's just try to put a smile on her face. Let's try to laugh at some of this stuff because this is life.
Yeah, yes. My sister and I, in our toolkit, used humor because that was the sense of humor our parents gave us. And that didn't make things easy. It made things easier, but there's nothing easy in dementia. It's all hard. But we could get together on one of the nights that she'd be here and open a bottle of wine and sit out back after mom went to bed and just download on each other, just talk about what was going on, and if I had screwed up, and if she had any advice for me, and she would tell me about her job because my area was so isolated in this house, and I love to hear about all the drama going on at her real gig. And just we had that. But I did want to also clarify, Steve, the reason why a lot of the things that I'm talking about now aren't in the film is because this film was never intended to be about my journey. This film is about the caregiver journey. And because I was also writing a blog during our time. I was doing a lot of filming because I like to make, I like to be creative and make little videos of mom that supported whatever the blog post was about. So I had a lot of archival footage that the editor said, hey, you know what, if we run this journey, not only the physical journey of creating the film, but your journey of the caregiving through these caregiver stories, that's going to be a much more satisfying and entertaining film. So that's why there's a lot of things that we're talking about that aren't in it, because it was never intended to be about just us. It's about these 5 people that became so important to me virtually, and our friends and our community that we built.
And so this is the blog that got you notoriety, correct? The Stumptown Dementia. Okay, I'll make sure to put that in there. And the way that it was told in the film is that you had this blog and there was all these followers that were now joining in and relating to some of the funny videos and the things that you were saying. And then after mom passed away, then you dreamed up this idea of getting an RV and traveling around the country and having wine with these caregivers. Did I do the journey?
Yeah, it started out even before mom died. I thought of these 5 people, everybody who participated in the blog were important to me, but 5 people in particular became just really good virtual friends. And some of them, it was always just via email. Some we Zoomed, blog remarks and stuff. And I knew I wanted to go visit them. I knew I wanted to go see them. I wanted to take a bottle of wine, and I just wanted to in person have the conversations that we had virtually online. From there, I thought, well, those conversations might be really helpful for other caregivers. Maybe we should, get a little film crew and see if we can pull a documentary together. And then, of course, because I can't ever do anything small, I was like, well, let's buy a used RV and throw mom's face all over it and drive around the country.
So let's kind of what are, like, on a high level, like, what are some of the themes that you sort of glean through your own experience and through the experience of all these others folks? Have you ever sort of like synthesized it, sort of like, this journey, there's a few things that I kind of saw that caregivers and folks facing these challenges are going through, and maybe some solutions too.
Yeah. I think the big theme of the film is community. And that wasn't something that I had set out to do, but it became very, very clear that community is what got us all through it. And focusing on life. And life isn't fun all the time. Death isn't fun. But until they take their last breath, it's still life. And you still have a life. And how do you figure out how to live one and how to help them live to the best of their ability? And dementia fights you every step of the way. But, we could find days where my mom could still smile. We could, still make her laugh. We could hand her a milkshake in the car and she'd just turn to us with like this Marilyn Monroe voice and go, thank you. Just and my mom had become nonverbal so early. That was, one of the few things she could still say, and being able to find the laughter in that, and even if it's a very small thing, that would get me through the day, remembering, later when she won't take her pills and she's spitting water at me because she doesn't want to, I could remember mom's little thank you, and just kind of help me out. So
I'll tell you, like, it's interesting. Before the discussion, I was making sure, I was like, hey, Kitty, do you have anything that you want to share? She goes, oh, I got a few clips. I said, well, share one. and I'll make sure that we can hear it. And it's ironic because the clip that you shared was my favorite part of the movie, and this is at the beginning stages of discovering that your mom has dementia. Here, I'm going to do the Johnny Carson thing. Set this clip up because it's powerful to me for several reasons.
Yeah, like I said, when I switched careers from fundraising to going into editing, I was going to film school. So my mom and dad's 50th anniversary was coming up, and I wanted to interview them and make a video for them as one of my school projects. So I will share my screen, and this is that clip. Can everybody see? Can you see, Steve?
Let's see, it's loading. There we go. Yes.
Okay.
And I saw this really tall, red-haired young man, and I didn't even know his name. And somebody said, well, that's da 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 da. And she's
There, right there. That is the exact moment I realized our lives were about to change.
Yeah, so I know that showing that over the Zoom, you may have not picked up on that, but number one, you were filming, so this was not, you maybe had some premonitions that mom was getting cognitive impairment, but this is an anniversary video, and mom can't remember her husband's name, and she it was the look of normalcy on her face as it rattled off her lips, but the look on your dad's face, you could tell that this was not the first time that something like that had happened. It just probably the first time that somebody was filming it when it happened.
Yeah, that was really early on. It was maybe at least another 6 months or so before people started to more talk about it, to be like, what's going on with your mom? And I'm like, I don't know. Why don't you ask her? We're all concerned too. Yeah, but and then spending time with that footage because I was making this video, every time I went through that clip, I'm like, why the hell can't mom remember dad's name? 50 years. She can't come up with a name,
Yeah. And that's, again, in the film and in our discussions here, that is one of those things that I'm glad you're bringing this up, because, and I'll check some of the chat and questions here in a moment. But there seems to be this, like, we want to just almost like shake our loved ones. It's like, you've been married to him for 50 years. Why can't you remember his name? Like they're doing this on purpose, and I think that's one of the things that I love about your film is that none of our loved ones are doing this to us on purpose. There's no way that they would do this, but we've got to deal with them. And so, it's okay to kind of laugh at some of the funny things that may be happening. It doesn't mean that we don't love them. It helps us get through another day.
Yeah. It at least it did for us. And one thing I talk to people a lot about in the talkbacks after a festival or an in-person screening is, what you saw on screen may not be the way you want to go through dementia. It may not work with your person, but what you see is 5, 6 people really thinking out of the box, really looking at their person and realizing what is going to work for them and giving it a shot. And that's what I want caregivers to take away. If they're like, there's no way I could ever hand my mom a banana phone and she would find that funny, but there's other things I can think to do that my mom would smile at, because I know my mom, I know my husband, I know my wife. We're not saying this is the way you have to get through it. We're saying, hey, here's how we did it. Some of it may help you, some of it may not, but it may spark some ideas in you as to how you can adapt a more free thinking, like, we all got to live through this. We all got to survive this journey, except for the one person who's got dementia. So how are we going to do that? And how are we going to make their life as good as possible for as long as possible?
Yeah, and the other thing that I'm just recalling from the film, and let me know if I interpreted this incorrectly, but I'm trying to sort of so first the first thing there is, we can chat in our community here about diagnosis and when you discovered it and how you discovered it and things like that with that one clip. But the other thing, at one point in the film, weren't you one of the people that you traveled to meet? You were talking about your own memory loss and sort of talking about thinking that you may, because that you've got this gene in your body, and you were talking about how you're forgetting things, and it was your own uh, cognitive health. You were questioning that. I'm not making this up. There was a scene like
No,
that.
no, it definitely, yeah. So, I went to see my 5 people, and one of them was a couple, so there was more than just these 5, but the other person was my friend Nicolette, who's been my friend for about 20 plus years. And she had already been through this, at least a decade or more earlier with her grandmother. And now her mom has early onset. And so Nicolette has since moved to Atlanta. When we stopped to see her and spend the night with her. That was right around my birthday. And she and I have a conversation about, there's something that happens in the film that makes me think, is it my turn? Is it coming for me? Is this early? Why is this happening? And Nico and I have a conversation about that. You know, as she puts it, she's second generation, what could be a genetic gift, and I'm first generation. So, and I think that's a big part too. I get a lot of feedback on caregivers being really grateful that we included that, because they have those doubts too.
I just glanced over at your blog and I never noticed that the tagline on it is punching dementia in the face one day at a time. You got a good sense of humor. Okay, let me make sure that I address some of the questions and comments, and then I'd love for you to play a few other clips that maybe we can talk
Yeah.
about and think about. But
Yeah.
Christine says, Kitty, how many Indie Film Fest awards do you have now? I guess Christine knows you, but just again, I don't want to dive down this rabbit hole too deep, but you make a film, okay, and then I mean, it's like you gotta repay yourself. You gotta I guess entering film festivals is one of the ways to heighten awareness and get distribution and things like that.
Yeah.
And your film has won a few awards.
Yeah, it has. I think we've won 5 total, Christine. So a couple of jury awards, best documentary, best feature, yeah, audience choice awards. So that's really exciting. I didn't So first time filmmaker, there's again, like dementia, there's a lot to learn about filmmaking and distribution. I kind of figured out about halfway through last year, because last year was our big festival run, that traditional distribution was most likely not going to be offered to this film. And if it was, it most likely was not going to be worth it. So I've heard anywhere from Netflix is paying $3,500 to $25,000 for a 3 to 18-year contract where they own your film and you don't do anything else with it. That's the end of that.
Holy cow.
Yeah. So I really have, unless you're Ken Burns, there's really no need for a little indie film to go that route. You can
No,
do a lot more with
see,
it on your own.
where I see your film being valuable is for organizations like ProMedica and other senior serving organizations. Watching a film and having a dialogue around it is so much easier than, well, it's not easier, it's different. And talking about art can sometimes be easier than going to a support group and sort of like, my name is Steve and my loved one has dementia. We talk about things after we watch films and plays that we normally wouldn't talk about, death, dying, things of that nature. Okay, let's go. I wanted to make sure to answer all the questions, so
Okay.
this is great. Okay, so Judith says, when it's your older husband with behaviors, it becomes difficult in a different way. Organically, he was put in memory care facility, the best of the worst. Yeah, and I think probably Judith typed that when you were talking about your experience and putting mom in a memory care community. And the other thing, folks, that I've found, I've heard Kitty's story many times. Buildings are wonderful. They're beautiful. They're designed, to take care of our loved ones with dementia. But leadership is really the most important thing. It's who's running the show and the culture that they have in that building. And Kitty, as you described it, with all of those staff members having to leave, I mean, that sounds like a nightmare in running any organization. Doesn't matter.
I think so. I think
Coffee
that
shop. Yeah.
it was just bad timing all the way around because we really did our research, I would like to let Judith know that I get a little frustrated because it's not as racially diverse and as economically diverse as I wish the film was. But we've got frontotemporal dementia, we've got Alzheimer's, we've got vascular dementia, we have Lewy body dementia with Parkinson's. We've got a husband and wife team who are taking care one parent each. We've got Allison Schreier, who took care of her husband. So we've got a wife-husband team of care partners. Most of us are daughters taking care of grandmas or moms, but I think there's a lot of diversity in the stories because, and this was not intentional at all. These were the people that I had made friends with, but we all had a different kind of place that we were coming from, and different situations and different dementias. So I hope when you see the film that you can find your story up there on the screen too, even though you're not the one on the screen. You recognize yourself in some of these stories.
There's a film called The Age of Love, which is about a speed dating event for older adults. And from the diversity perspective, they came up with this idea and they shot it in Rochester, New York, like 15 years ago. And that was one of the things. It was sort of like, hey, we came up with this idea. We tried our best to show a more diverse audience, but it's not easy. Nicole, and I dropped this into chat, Nicole says, from what I've read and researched, lifestyle plays a bigger role in dementia than genetics. There are still so many unknowns around prevention, cause, cure, and treatment. And I think that's, when I mentioned, you sort of feeling insecure because your mom had this disease, is it affecting me? Thank you for sharing that, Nicole. And what we had Dr. Bill Thomas on not too long ago, who says, there's a lot that's out there, but from what we all know is exercise and movement and staying healthy is probably one of the most important things to ward off dementia. Let's see.
And then clearly, after you see the film, you see that one of us is not really doing any of that. So it's very diverse. It's diverse with people trying to stay healthy and diverse with people trying to go out with lung cancer before they get a dementia. So
that's something that I did notice in the film. You smoked a lot of cigarettes.
Yeah,
are you still smoking?
Oh God, yes. I think
okay.
I'll have to pry that from my oxygen encased lungs. Yeah.
Okay, Barbara asks, how can I see the film? And Barbara and everybody, I'm dropping the screening link in to chat. There are some screenings, it looks like, on the website that are already set up. So if they're in your area, you can join those. But there's also a button to host a screening. But what I would tell you too is that if you're in like our main Mid-Atlantic region and you'd like to do a screening with Kitty, similar to the way ProMedica is doing it, just reach out and we'll see what we can do. What my intention is, ProMedica and myself are trying to do a DC Metro screening with Kitty, and then I want to also do an online screening How does an online screening work? We would, pay for the rights to do the screening, and then do we all watch it together, or do we, like, people sign up and they get a link and they can watch it, and then we can have a discussion online afterwards?
It can be done both ways. I've
Okay.
had organizations do both ways. American Medical Women's Association did a 10-day screening window last November. So they just invited all their members at any point in those 10 days, they can go and watch the film. And then 2 days later, we had a Zoom get together to talk about the themes of the film. Some organizations, we'll do an in-person screening, but like you said, knowing that caregivers can't always get out, then they'll make the film available either during that time so people can join and watch all together, or they'll make it available for 24 hours afterwards so people can access the film that way. I would say join the newsletter on the website, Wine, Women, and Dementia. I think I've got 6 uh, community screenings booked for June already. There's like another 4 coming up in April. May, we're going to have a couple of screening windows this year where it will be a kind of a pay what you will. Mother's Day is going to be one of the
Oh,
weekends.
that's a great idea.
Yeah, we did this Thankful for Caregivers weekends for Thanksgiving, and you can show up to a screening, register, be our guest, have a free ticket, or if you can afford to support the film and help us reach more caregivers, chip in, buy a $10 ticket or a $20 ticket or a $50 ticket to support the film. So we'll be doing that for Mother's Day weekend, and there's probably going to be another one around the longest day in June for our brain health awareness. If you're in the UK, we're doing a big UK rollout for Dementia Action and Awareness Week in the UK, which starts the day after Mother's Day. Canada, we're going to be doing another rollout for you guys too. We'll have the same kind of screening window open. So join that newsletter, because I'm
Okay, cool.
mostly a one-woman team over here, and I don't always get things up on the website, but the newsletter people know first when things are coming.
Great. Okay, let's see. Lots of great comments in chat, and then Zahida says that her brother that community was the theme for her too, is that building a community. And what one of the things that we found is that it's good for all of us to have conversations and build our community in advance of a healthcare issue. Because imagine if, like, your mom and dad had conversations about something like this, and with their family, friends, neighbors, the additional resources that could be added to you and your sister.
Yes. And that speaks very directly to my father's way of caregiving. And he was, my parents had a very traditional marriage. They were very traditional, that generation in between, the greatest generation and the baby boomers. My father didn't want people to know. He didn't want people to judge mom. He didn't want people to interfere. Mom is the third of 9 children. She has a lot of sisters who like to know what's going on all the time, and he was afraid they were going to judge him. I look at that now and I think my mom's dementia didn't give dad pancreatic cancer, but it wore him down so much. He was way too isolated, way too much trying to do it all on his own. And it kept him from maybe getting a diagnosis, a year earlier that could have given him a few more years.
Mm-hmm.
That community, and you hear that. I remember hearing that, don't try and do this alone. Caregivers often die before their care partners. I think that's what happened in our family. I think that's why my dad died so soon.
I love it. Okay. I've got a few, and I totally agree. It's like, let's watch a few more clips of the movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
And great comments in chat, folks. keep on sharing. This is wonderful. But let's see if some of these clips sort of trigger more talking points for us as well.
Yeah, so this is Allison Schreier, and I think Roseanne's in this clip too. One of the things that I very specifically set out to do was kind of talk about some of the biggest issues in dementia, and this is about isolation.
Some of the people who I thought would really be there.
You need to share the screen. Yeah.
Oh.
Make sure you there you go. Okay,
Nope,
okay.
you just get to listen to it and guess. All right, I'll share.
Some of the people who I thought would really be there for us weren't. People who I thought would be absolutely instrumental in helping make the journey easier for us were not there.
And it was just infuriating to me because I was looking for somebody to help. And there just wasn't anybody.
All right. And this is the dark side of community is that, you know, when we don't have somebody to support us,
I think that's very common for most of us early on, is to be in that place where there's nobody. And I've tried a couple of times and I feel like I'm bugging people, or, you know, I'm being disrespectful to my care person because they don't want to be out there. And eventually I think we all kind of figure out, no, we all need this community, and I better figure out how to find it because I'm drowning.
Yeah. Okay. That was great. So we've got the. Do you have any more? I don't want to discount. Sort of giving people a preview and giving us some talking points, and then I'll go back and look at the chat.
This one is in reference to kind of our sense of humor and how we found it and used it.
The people who he was working with had lost all respect for him. And it was really important to me to kind of clear his good name. And on one hand, to clear his good name, to let everybody know.
Good news. It's dementia.
Yeah, right? I know. He's not an asshole.
You really picked like some of the parts of the film that I really liked, and that was the conversation about this. Her husband, was it her husband?
Yeah, her husband had frontotemporal, which is a whole nother beast. And he was a big man, he was a young man, and there was a lot of issues, you know, because they went 6 years without a diagnosis. So people just thought he was this incredible jerk. He had just gone from this caring, wonderful person to just not caring at all, and doing everything he wanted to do. And yeah, so.
And Carolyn, I want to read Carolyn's comment / question that is on this topic, and I dropped it into chat too, is both of my parents have age dementia. My father recently passed, although I was told by another neurologist that if I got it, I would likely follow the path of my mother's neurologist said that the onset for offspring is typically early, aka frontal temporal dementia, which Bruce Willis had. But any of the discussions around frontal temporal dementia, it oftentimes does impact people younger, which, you know, you could be in a workplace like this person, and it's sort of you begin behaving oddly, and it's just like I like that dialogue about clearing his name and, you know, explaining to people what happened after the fact.
Yeah. Carolyn, I've heard that also. I will let you guys know that this film is not, this film is a very personal film. It's about caregivers and how they personally, how it felt, how they got through it, how they're still getting through it. We don't have, and this is very, intentional on my part, we don't have professionals, we don't have neurologists. It is literally focused on what caregivers are thinking, feeling, saying, doing challenges, successes, failures. So this isn't the film that you would come to for a lot of information about what the medical community is doing. It's a film that'll give you a lot of information about what you're doing, and you'll see a lot of yourself in it.
And
I think that's one of the beauties of it. Everybody else is doing that other stuff, and I wanted you guys to see yourselves.
yeah, no, I thought you did a really good job, and with the sense of humor and laughter and giving yourself permission to have fun, which I think sometimes doesn't come through in the films on the challenges about dementia. Okay, Martha, I want us all to support Martha because her question is very personal. It says, I greatly appreciate Kitty sharing her journey because my family welcomes humor. Since 2013, my mom has been living with Alzheimer's in a nursing home. That's 11 years, if I'm doing the math right. That's, you know, my challenges as a caregiver have greatly increased while my time has decreased. Any suggestions for balancing my time during my caregiving journey?
No, I don't. What I would say, Martha, is that you're the expert in the room. If you're saying that your challenges have increased, but your time has decreased, you're now in the advocacy. You're an advocacy caregiver. You know, somebody else is taking care of getting the showers and the food and all of that stuff. But your role has become advocacy, and in that, you know, your time may decrease, but now you're dealing with a whole set of other people who you also have to make sure are giving the best care possible. And I'm not sure if that's really kind of your story, but that would be my guess. That's how I felt when my mom was in memory care. But I would definitely say that you guys, you have the answers.
Yeah.
And it's great to go to professionals and see what other people are doing, ask other caregivers, get on forums. But the answers, we have them. We just don't trust ourselves.
Yeah. And
it
folks,
it was a long time into the journey before I finally went, I'm the expert in the room and I need to, it's my answer. So
that's great. And folks, you know, feel free to drop into chat some comments that might help Martha. And another person that I want us all to support is Denise. And her comment is, I had to move my mother out of the assisted living home because her fees were increased beyond her income without the assurance of immediate improvements. I'm at the age that my mom initially started with memory loss. She has lived with me since 2011, with exception of 2 years when she was in the facility. I'm at my wit's end. And you know, first off, Denise, thanks for taking the time to come here, be a part of our community. My heart goes out to you and your family. Denise, any words of wisdom? And those in the audience, I mean, I see people are sending love to you, Denise. It's not an easy journey. And like, remember at the beginning of the film when I was like, Kitty, you were caring for your mom for 3 years, you know, these two comments here are decades of doing this.
Right.
You know.
And it was 5 years, by the way. Don't count out my last 2
Okay.
years.
Yeah.
It was 5 years, Dave. Denise, I hear you. I think the only thing that I would suggest, if you can, is to find your people, find people that can come in, find ways to connect with your friends. If you can't get out, Zoom after your mom goes to bed, open a bottle of wine and Zoom with your friends. Make friends with other people who are also in the same situation. If nobody else understands dementia, you could probably find some other daughter who's taking care of their parent and say, oh my God, can we just at least have lunch at each other's house once a week or once every couple of weeks and have somebody new to talk to? These are hard things. I know, darling. Veronica in the film, she's my gal in Texas who I just love to death. She went home in, I think it was 2008, to help her mother care for her grandmother. Within a year, her mother was diagnosed with dementia. So Veronica took care of her grandmother until her grandmother died, and now she's still taking care of her mom. Well, and she's an overachiever. She went out and started a whole nonprofit so, to help other caregivers. Oh, she makes me so mad. She's just doing everything. But yeah, you're not the only one, darling. You're not the only one. So actually, I have a clip. I'd love to show this clip from Veronica that I
Oh,
have.
absolutely. Yeah. No, let's watch another clip.
Okay. So this is my overachiever. That's what I call her when I tease her.
This is a part of life.
Right.
Death is a part of life.
Yeah.
One of the toughest times was my grandmother and that end stage. And that part of it was because I had my mother too, who really, I don't know that she really understood everything that was going on. So it was really me on my own dealing with my grandmother.
Wow. And so
all I can offer you guys is to let you know that you're not alone. I don't have the answers that you need, but I know other people have figured it out, and so will you.
This is great. And I'm looking at the clock, and I see that we've burned through almost an hour. No surprise. Some great. Oh, is the Roseanne that you've been talking about? Is it Roseanne Corcoran?
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. I love my Miss Roseanne. Yeah.
She's in the chat, and she was in the film, correct?
Yeah, and that's one thing that Roseanne and I talk about. We think it's so funny. Like when we first started to become virtual friends, she wasn't doing a podcast. I wasn't thinking about doing a movie. You know, we were just trying to get through this journey with our moms.
All
So,
right. Hey, Roseanne,
yeah.
I'm bringing you on the stage here. I heard you talking about Roseanne, and I saw some comments, but Roseanne, it would be great before we tune out if just to get to meet you. And I hope I'm not taking you by surprise, but you were in a award-winning film. I figure you'll get on one of these little Zoom broadcasts here, Roseanne. So you can whoops, sorry. You can unmute and turn on your.
Always happy to say hello. Hi, Steve. Nice to meet you.
Yeah. So
Kitty, nice to see you.
Yeah, thanks for coming on here. This was great, and a pleasant surprise to have one of the individuals featured on the film. But
Sure.
anything that you'd like to add to the conversation or share that may have not been shared, either about your situation or the film, Roseanne?
Well, I mean, Kitty puts it all in perspective, and it is, and my heart goes out to the two caregivers that we were, just discussing. It's so hard because we get caught up in well, what am I supposed to do? What can I do? How do I help myself? And it's really hard. And that's the part that people forget. People think, well, how hard is it? You're just taking care of your parents, or you're just taking care of your husband, or, what's so hard about that? And it's hard because everything changes. And you're left with these feelings of, oh my goodness, this is really hard, and I don't know how to do this. And we feel inept, and then we're isolated. And all of that is this huge stew that just makes you feel bad every single day because you feel like you're missing something, and you're not missing anything. This is the system that we're in. And I think, Kitty putting all of this together hopefully shows caregivers that you're not alone in your thinking, and you're not alone in feeling the way you feel. This is hard stuff. And don't be afraid to try to connect with somebody to make it a little less hard. And everybody's, I don't want to go and talk to other people. It'll just make me feel worse. It will not make you feel worse. It'll make you feel seen, and it'll make you feel supported and empowered. And there were times that Kitty and I would be emailing each other, or, texting each other like, oh my God, I don't know how I'm going to do this one more day. And she got it and I got it. And it didn't mean that we didn't want to continue. It just meant we needed a little support and we got it. And I think that comes through. Anybody that sees this movie, I think you'll be able to see that.
Man, this is great. It's so great to have you on here, Roseanne. And
Thank you, Steve.
I'm looking to forward to the screenings and after people have watched it, because just to look at what we've done with these brief clips in terms of talking points and how dynamic this discussion has been. Somebody asked, is there more dementia now, or is it just out of the closet? And whoever asked that question, I dropped into chat and I just did a quick Google search, and it validates what I've been told. The reason that we're hearing more about dementia and more people have dementia is because we're living healthier, longer lives. Is that this was not out of the closet back when our longevity was in our 60s. It's because now we're living to 80s and 100s that this is a byproduct of living longer, and hopefully we can find a cure or what is close to a cure in many of our lifetimes.
Can I offer my personal theory on that
Yeah.
answer? All right, so I've been following the baby boomers my whole entire life. And what I've realized is once things start happening to the baby boomers, shit starts changing. So at 40, dudes couldn't get a hard on, so they all got Viagra. Women didn't like how their faces looked, so we got all of these plastic surgery breakthroughs. Well, now everybody's getting dementia, and they're saying, we're not putting up with this. And then we've got the millennials on the other side, and they don't shut up about anything. And these people are taking care of their grandparents and their early onset parents. And they are also, like, you get on TikTok, you get on Instagram, they are talking about all of this. It has changed so much since I took over in 2016, where I couldn't find anybody talking about this. The baby boomers and the millennials are going to make huge changes in dementia, all for the better. So
I like your answer so much better than mine. And and I was going to also add, one of the things that I like about this film is the free use of bad words, and it's not excessive, but there's lots of, shit and, fuck and all that stuff, being thrown around, but it's authentic. It's not like that it's being done for shock value. It's because at the end of the day, it's like, can you believe what mom did? And and I really like that aspect of the film, and I know that's there's a lot of editing that goes into picking the right clips, but I thought you did a very good job of that.
I was very lucky to go in person to a Teepa Snow conference in Oregon here locally early on. And I remember somebody asking her a question, and she said, if you don't think your pastor's mother is going to drop the F-bomb on you at some point in this dementia journey, you're completely wrong. She knows that word, and she may never say it until dementia makes sure she doesn't care if she says it or not.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love it. You're great. I mean, you're just so funny. I like your laugh. I mean, I got, an hour and a half of your laugh. For those of you who are not familiar with Teepa Snow, she's very well known. It's called the A Positive Approach for Care. I'm dropping into chat the link to her website. One of these days, I'm going to be lucky enough. Yeah, one of these days I'll be lucky enough to get her on one of these discussions. I need to beat that drum. If there's anybody out there that's friends with her, maybe you could help me do that, because I think it would be wonderful. But
she was probably one of the first people I saw in this space that I was like, oh my gosh, I get her. She's using humor to get her point across. She very much focuses on behaviors, tons of YouTube videos. I think most of us find her the first time our person decides they aren't going to shower anymore. That usually is the first YouTube video of Teepa's you find, and you go, oh, holy God, it's not just my person. It's like, this is a thing, and people are finding ways to get through it. So
I love it. I love all the sharing of information in chat, and like we we have such a great mix in this community. We've got older adults, we've got caregivers, and we have professionals. And I think Susie's in there, and she was being very sensitive. Hey, I don't want to come across as though I'm self-promoting, but I help people in this space. When you're in this space, use the chat, man. Introduce yourself, folks. It's okay. And we all know there's a fine line around self-promotion and this, that, and the other. But if connecting with a professional can help somebody in this community, I want to make it happen, And so, anyways,
I absolutely agree. And I would say I'm not a professional. I'm a storyteller, and I'm telling our story. Connect with any of these people. Once you find somebody who gets you, keep that connection open,
Yeah.
like once a month, can we just talk once or every other week? You want to do something, even if it's just virtual. That's how I know Roseanne. That's how I know Veronica. That's how I know Allison,
I love it.
Yeah.
No,
And it's
I love it.
interesting. If I can just add, Teepa Snow talks about caregivers, and she likens us to frogs in the pot, where the water's boiling and you don't realize it until it's too late. And why it's so important, right? Why it's so important to try to take those breaks. And as hard as it really is self-preservation.
Yeah. Oh man, this is great. This has really been a great discussion, and we didn't even watch the film. We just talked to the person that made the film, and that's what's so cool. So just stay tuned, folks. I've got everybody's, if you signed up for this, I got your email. And so when we get some dates of the screenings online and in person, I'll make sure to get that out there. But Kitty, I really want to thank you for your humor and the time you took to put this film together and share it with us, and the dialogue that is created and the ideas that is created. And I really want to thank everybody who attended this and your great questions and comments. It just makes I just get so excited when I wake up in the morning and I got one of these discussions, because I never know what's going to be discussed, but I feel like we're helping people out.
Yeah, I've had a great time. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Please connect with me through the website. Send me an email. Just thank you. Thanks to everybody. Thanks, Steve, for having us, and appreciate y'all being here. And thank you, Miss Roseanne.
Always,
Yeah.
Kitty. Thank you.
That was a great treat, Roseanne. So,
Thanks,
all right,
Steve. Thank
folks.
you.